Everyone, did you ever want to ask us a question directly or communicate, give us feedback, make suggestions, whatever it is, you can now do that direct. There's a link in the show notes right at the top where you can text us directly, come communicate with us right here in the podcast studio, or you can text the number 904-867-4466 and text the number 201-4652 and leave your message. That is 904-867-4466 or text the number 204-4652 and leave your message. We look forward to talking to you soon. Welcome, everybody, to Cybercrime Junkies. Today, we're going to go over a true cybercrime that's going to blow your mind. Mark joins me in the studio. Mark Mosher. How are you, sir?
I'm doing great, David. You know, this is one of those stories, had I not had to research it myself, it would truly be unbelievable. Would you tell the listeners what we're going to talk about today?
Yeah, I mean, this one's really disturbing. Think about this. Imagine if nobody believed you. Nobody believed who you are. Nobody. Your bank, the police, your doctor, the hospitals. It'd be something out of an alternative universe, something like a movie in Hollywood, but something that is horribly cruel and frankly unbelievable. But what if I told you that it was, in fact, true? That this really happened, and not just back in the 1950s and 70s, but in the past few years, and culminating to a shocking end just a few weeks ago. This is a story which captures the dramatic and tragic story of William Woods, a man whose life was turned upside down by a chance encounter and a stolen identity. His journey through false accusations, wrongful imprisonment, and eventual exoneration is a testament to resilience and the pursuit of justice. And we always like going after good, Cinderella stories, right, Mark? Like something where like the pursuit of justice is bigger than the person and they fight through all these things. And you're like, how do they keep going? It blows our mind. But this one's really cruel. And this one is a really good example of what happens when we don't value our own personal privacy, right? When we don't understand that it is a fundamental human right. We have to take it seriously. Otherwise, other people are going to take it from us. This is the true cybercrime story of William Woods. And now the show. Come join us as we go behind the scenes of today's most notorious cybercrime. Every time we get online, we enter their world. So we provide true storytelling to raise awareness, interviewing global leaders making an impact and improving our world, translating cybersecurity into everyday language that's practical and easy to understand. We appreciate you making this an award-winning podcast by downloading our episodes on Apple and Spotify and subscribing to our YouTube channel. This is Cybercrime Junkies, and now the show. Our story begins in 1988 in Albuquerque, New Mexico. Ever been there, Mark?
No, never been to Albuquerque. Been all over Mexico, but not New Mexico.
Well, New Mexico is the new Mexico. It's like new and improved. It's got an American stamp on it. So William Woods, he's a young man. He's working at a hot dog cart. You ever work at a hot dog cart? Why do I think you've worked at a hot dog cart?
As a matter of fact, yes, I have worked at a hot dog cart.
Was that when you lived in like the Virgin
That's when
Islands?
I lived down in the islands. Yeah, down in the Caribbean.
In the islands?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. Worked the hot dog cart.
Yeah, I don't doubt that. And you may, working
That's why I can
like,
sympathize so much with this story, right? This one hit really close to home.
This absolutely could have happened to you. So, and for all I know, your name is really like Max Better and not Mark Mosher. So,
Exactly.
All right, let's get back to this because it's a sad story.
It is. It truly is.
So 1988, Albuquerque, New Mexico. William Woods is a young man. He's working a hot dog cart. He's living a very simple and predictable life. He's diligent. He's unassuming, but he has no idea that his world is about to be turned upside down. One day, a new coworker, Matthew David Kierens. He's the bad guy in this story. He joins their hot dog cart team. They barely interact, but a brief encounter, right, will alter the course of William Woods' life forever. One fateful day, William's wallet goes missing. And I'm sure your wallet is going missing.
Yeah, it happens. That's why I keep the Velcro one.
Yes, I don't doubt that. I'm surprised you don't have a long chain tied to your tie.
No, it kept getting caught in the door. It's caused a lot of problems.
Exactly. You tripped over it. So William Woods's wallet goes missing. It contains his social security card and his birth certificate, crucial pieces of his identity. Now, this is back in 1988. People used to carry their social security card with them and maybe even their birth certificate. That to me is that's a bit much to have it all in your wallet, but it's in there. William confronts Matthew because he's like a new guy there, and he kind of saw him near where he had put his wallet for safekeeping by the hot dog cart. He suspects him of the theft. He eventually gets his wallet back, and the documents are all there. They're seemingly untouched. But what he doesn't realize is this, that Matthew David Kierens had written down all of the information and in fact had taken the social security card and the birth certificate information. It wasn't the actual certificate. It was like a sheet with information on it. And he had taken that and made a copy of it over by a local office that they were at. That small but significant theft sets off a chain of events that leads to decades of confusion and massive injustice, which we're going to get into. Unbeknownst to William, Matthew Kierens starts living a double life. And I'm sure yeah. And he starts to use, he's going about his day, right? Matthew Kierens is, but he also starts to act and use the identity of William Woods when it's convenient for him. But he starts to do it more and more. He acquires a new social security card, a new driver's license, and even ultimately gets employment using William Woods' name. Matthew becomes a high-level hospital administrator over in Iowa years later, and he even winds up earning a total of close to $1 million, over $100,000 a year, landing an IT job for a hospital, which we're going to get into very soon. And that raises a whole bunch of issues about identity protection, know your employee issues, things like that, for the hospital to have hired him and not have vetted this, right? All under Matthew Kierens does that all under William Woods' name, under that stolen identity. Meanwhile, the real William Woods is struggling. He winds up becoming homeless, unaware of the financial chaos building up in his name. But he soon does become aware of it. Why don't you walk us through the next part?
Yeah, David. According to the National Directory on Exonerations, published by University of Michigan Law School, the details of this nightmare and when Matthew built up a laundry list of fraud committed by Kierens in Woods' name. He even bought a car in 1991 with a check that bounced, among other checks that he bounced. Kierens ultimately drove the car to Idaho, where he abandoned it. Now, Kierens withdrew the last dollar from his bank account and left Idaho. And eventually an arrest warrant was issued in Woods' name in Colorado. Now, fast forward to 1994.
Okay, so let me ask you this. So he's got a bank account. He's got checks. all in William Woods' name.
Yep.
He gets a car and then abandons it and all of this stuff, and then gets in trouble in Colorado. And then an arrest warrant is issued, but he doesn't care because it's in not Woods' really
name.
Him.
Yeah, it's in
They've
Woods'
got
name.
his picture. They've got his arrest, right? Everything else, but it's got his picture. It says William Woods, and all of the birth certificate, all the identity, the state issued identities, all of that still say William Woods.
He even goes one step further. So in 94, Kierens got married, and the couple eventually had a child, but he bore the name of Woods. He had a kid in Woods' name.
So the kid is born with the last name of the guy whose identity Matthew Kierens stole.
Yeah.
Holy crap.
Yeah. So fast forward now to, I think it was 2012, where Kierens fraudulently obtained a certified copy of a birth certificate in Woods' name from the state of Kentucky. So I said this one hits close to home, right?
Mm-hmm.
A year after that, Kierens, obviously known as William Woods, he began working at that hospital that you mentioned in Iowa City, Iowa. And he was a high-level IT administrator in the hospital's IT department. The thing was, though, he worked remotely at that time from his home in Wisconsin. Over a 10-year period, you had mentioned he earned almost $1 million from the hospital, rising up to an annual salary of more than $100,000 a year. Now, this is the same time that Woods is homeless, the real Woods.
Wow. So
between August 2016 and May of 2022, like you said, this just culminated just very recently. Kierens obtained several loans totaling nearly $250,000 from two different credit unions in Iowa. And you know what name they were under?
It wasn't Matthew Kierens.
It wasn't Matthew Kierens. No, it was William Woods.
Stay with us. We'll be right back.
Hey everyone, we are thrilled to introduce you to a place very close to our heart, blushingintrovert.com, an online store of women's clothing and accessories that make the perfect gift. You see, they're passionate about spreading joy and promoting mental health awareness. Blushingintrovert.com carries cozy women's sweatshirts and quality accessories, journals, handmade gifts and stickers. Everything is in stock, ready to ship directly to your door. Inspired by the calling to give back, a portion of every purchase supports vital mental health initiatives. So your shopping experience with blushingintrovert.com truly makes a difference. So come check them out on either Etsy or at their online store at blushingintrovert.com and experience the warmth. Blushingintrovert.com, your happy place. Visit blushingintrovert.com today. Wow. So let's segue. Let's take a look back at what's going on with William Woods.
Yeah.
So what I was able to find is, meanwhile, during all this was going on, the real William Woods had fallen on hard times, like we talked about. He became homeless. He discovered that somehow a mountain of debt had been accumulated in his name. This happened when he tried to borrow some money. It happened, he was pawning things off at a pawn shop, then went to like a fast loan place, and that's where he discovered it. So on August 20, 2019, Woods goes into a bank. Woods is still living in Southern California. He had moved from New Mexico to California. So he goes into a local branch of a bank in Los Angeles. He had discovered these massive debts that had been accrued in his name, and he was desperate. I mean, he was homeless. He was really struggling, and he had no money, nor did he take out these loans, but he had several $100,000 of debt in his name. And this is what happens, is it not, Mark? When people take your identity, this is what happens, right? So for parents out there, this is why we always talk about how important it is to monitor and freeze your children's credit while they're young. Why? Because most parents never run their kids' credit reports or monitor their kids' credits, and their identities have been used. There's hundreds and hundreds of examples that Mark and I have come across.
Yep.
By the time they're 18, 19, they come out and they're ruined. And that's on us. That's on us parents. So circling back to Woods, he's at the bank. He goes to the bank to report the identity theft and to close those fraudulent accounts.
Good job.
So, yep. And this was written up even in People magazine. So this story is recently broke just in the last couple of weeks. He told the assistant branch manager there at that bank in Southern California that he had recently discovered the debts in his name. He told the manager he wasn't going to pay the hundreds of thousands of dollars in debt and wanted to close his accounts at the bank. Rightly so. It wasn't his debt. Woods said he believes somebody had stolen his identity. So by 2019, he finally becomes aware of it, right? Because it had just mounted on. He had suspicions earlier on, but they just kind of came away, and he hadn't traveled. He wasn't a man of many means. He lived a simple life. He hadn't traveled anywhere, so he hadn't been arrested, and he hadn't been charged or picked up on any of those other warrants that Matthew Kierens had, like in Colorado and things like that, because he had never traveled there. Woods presented his Social Security card to the bank manager and also a state of California identification card, a true one. This information matched the information on the bank accounts.
Yep.
Why? Because Matthew Kierens had used his identity. However, when the bank manager asked a series of security questions, including details of the dates the accounts were opened and other security questions, which they use, like your mother's maiden name and all this other stuff, Woods couldn't answer.
Oh.
Because they weren't his questions.
Right.
They were those of the real, of Matthew Kierens, of the real perpetrator here.
You know, David, that really gets to the heart of it right there, right?
Mm-hmm.
We keep using these security questions as some, magical way to identify ourselves, specifically to the banks, right? But it's not a really good practice to use the same ones over and over. It leaves us vulnerable, that can be manipulated just like it was here, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So what happened next? Walk us through it.
So when the manager asked these series of questions, what street did you grow up on? What was your, eighth grade school mascot? Or everybody knows the questions, right? But some of the details were specific to the accounts, like what date were they opened? When was the last transaction? He couldn't answer any of those. So when he fails to answer these security related questions, the bank manager, noted that the customer information on the account showed that the account owner was in Wisconsin.
That's where Matthew Kierens was.
Yes. So he contacts the number listed on the account, right? Good move. It's Matthew Kierens' number. So Matthew's posing as William. He convinced the bank he meant Kierens is the real William Woods and claims the real William is an imposter. So he's convincing the branch manager over the phone, no, I'm me. The guy standing in front of you is an imposter.
Yeah, and he goes, "Ask me a security question. I can tell you when I open the bank account.
He was able to answer the questions.
I can tell you what I bought. This is me. I don't know who this guy is." And the other issue is this. Here's the other play here, right? And none of the reports that we found talked about it. But it's about bias, right? It's about human bias and confirmation bias in a sense, right?
Yep.
We believe the IT person that works at a hospital. We don't believe the guy who walks in the
homeless
bank.
hot dog cart guy.
Yeah.
Right?
Right.
So this poor guy. So the bank, being convinced that who they spoke to on the phone was the real Woods, turns around and calls the Los Angeles Police Department. They called the cops on the guy. So LAPD officers spoke with Kierens on the phone, who stated he lived in Wisconsin and did not give anyone in California permission to access his bank accounts. He actually faxed the LAPD a series of phony identification documents.
Those are crimes in and of itself.
This guy has no boundaries.
That's additional crimes that he's doing.
Yeah. And the LAPD looked at him and turned around and arrested William Woods on 2 felony charges.
Oh, my gosh.
Like it went from really bad to really worse.
That's horrible.
I know. That's what I said. It's almost not believable. And it's not funny. It's really sad, but it's just, it's so bad. So Williams is arrested, charged with identity theft, I guess for stealing his own identity, the very crime committed against him, right? He insists he's a real William Woods. No one believes him. The courts even label him as mentally incompetent.
What?
The cops didn't believe him. The bank manager didn't believe him. The courts don't believe him. And now they're going to commit him to a psychiatric facility where he's forcibly medicated.
Are you kidding?
That's what I said. This is almost unbelievable. But this happened to this poor guy. 175 days. He's trapped in this legal and psychological nightmare. And he's unable to prove his true identity. Nobody will believe the guy. So he's charged in Kierens' name, held without bail at the Los Angeles County Jail. No bail, right? And the guy's got no money anyways, but
right.
So he's in the ensuing months that come, Kierens contacted the LAPD and the LA District Attorney numerous times requesting updates on the arrest of the real William Woods and where they stood in the victim's prosecution.
Think of the gall here. He stole his identity. He racked up a bunch of debt, never had to pay it back. He got a good job. He's making good money, all in this guy's name. And while they're prosecuting him, he's like, you better be, what are you guys doing? You better be going after this guy, feed him, you better loop him up on more medication. He must be, the real William Woods must have been so depressed, so just mind-boggling, bewildered about the legal system. Right?
Yeah. So,
I mean, what else happens? Walk us through.
So the California state court. So as he's going through, he's stuck in this appeal and proceedings and prosecution. A California state judge, he ultimately found that the real William Woods, the victim, was not mentally competent to stand trial and ordered him to be committed to the California Mental Hospital.
God.
And they've continued the forced medication with psychotropic drugs during his stay at the psych ward. Yes. Yeah. So it moved forward to, I think it's around March 2021, right?
Okay. So like you said, this around in the legal system.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. He's in you said 575 days. So it's more than a year. It's winding around through the legal system the entire time he's in jail. And then at a mental institution, and then forcibly fed psychotropic drugs. Yeah. So he eventually pled no contest to the 2 felony charges in exchange for they gave him time served, sentence, and immediate release from custody. So he got out, but he had to plead no contest to 2 felony charges he didn't commit. So in total, the real William Woods, I think he spent a total of 428 days in the county jail and like 147 days in a mental hospital as a result of Kierens' false reports to the LAPD and the LA District Attorney. The state court also ordered the real William Woods, the victim, to use only their true name, Matthew Kierens, in the future. Wait a minute. So they flipped the name.
Other guy's name.
So they said there's a court order that you found that says, and by the way, real William Woods, you're not allowed to use the name William Woods. You must go by Matthew Kierens.
Yes.
Moving forward. There's a court order that says that.
Yeah.
All of this is what happens when somebody gets your identity, because this literally just happened.
Yeah.
Holy crap. Okay.
So after he got released from jail and out of the hospital, the real William Woods, the victim, he made numerous attempts to regain his identity, right? To get his identity back. And for his part, Kierens continued to make false reports and statements to law enforcement officials in Wisconsin and California. He continued to do it. where he's living freely, maintaining his false identity, right? It's only when federal authorities in Iowa began investigating some financial irregularities at the hospital where Kierens worked, that's when the truth started to unravel.
See, it's like all cyber perpetrators that we see. It's just never enough, right? Like, yeah, I've taken this guy's, I've gotten all this money, I've got this job, I ruined this guy's life. I've borrowed and enjoyed all these material things I didn't even have to pay for. But now I'm going to steal from the hospital too. I'm going to move stuff around, and then they start investigating the hospital, and then some of the stuff starts to unravel.
Yeah. So after the real Woods got out, the guy's he's broke. He's really down at the bottom of the barrel.
Yeah,
he's going to a public library just to use internet, and he keeps searching, trying to find Kierens. And
so he's got no legal team. He's got no army of
it's just him in a public library
and legal team, right?
Yeah.
I wish he would have reached out to us, honestly.
We
would have helped him. Okay.
I got a couple pretty good attorneys. I'd have helped them.
Yeah.
So anyway, it's the real William Woods. As he's doing these internet searches in this public library in January 2023, right? Not long ago, he learns that Kierens is employed at that hospital that we mentioned in Iowa City. So he reaches out to the hospital and contacts their security department about Kierens. So the hospital referred the complaint to local law enforcement, which assigned an experienced detective to investigate the victim's complaint.
Oh, so somebody is eventually, this is January 2023. So this is just a year and a few months ago.
Yeah.
Somebody starts to take it seriously because there's a lot of things a lot of dots to be connected here.
So it happened. This seasoned detective that got us just assigned this case, he conducts an investigation. And over the course of this next couple months, Kieren's identity scheme starts to unravel. Yeah. Among other things, the detective obtained DNA evidence that conclusively proved that Kierens was not the real William Woods.
Fantastic.
Yep.
Wow. So from what I saw, Matthew David Kierens, who had been living under the stolen identity of William Donald Woods for over 30 years, he ultimately gets arrested in Heartland, Wisconsin.
Thank God.
Yes. The arrest took place after a lengthy investigation revealed that Kierens had used the stolen identity to obtain jobs, loans, and other benefits. On the day of his arrest, authorities didn't need to break down the door. Kierens didn't put up much of a fight. He was cooperative during the arrest. He wasn't at work, so they went to his home there in Heartland, Wisconsin. And that's where he was working remotely. He had his computer there. They seized all of that, and they also disabled the access to the University of Iowa hospitals and the clinics that he had access to there in his home in Wisconsin. The arrest followed that detailed investigation you talked about, which had been initiated by the real William Woods. It's unbelievable. After, this case kind of came to light, it gained a lot of attention, didn't it, Mark? I mean,
yeah.
It all kind of came about when Woods ultimately contacted the hospital himself, and he reached out to their compliance office and their security office. And that's how they turned it over ultimately to that experienced detective you mentioned. The DNA evidence is really key. And that DNA evidence would not have been available in the early 90s. So it was available now. So this is something like a cold case because of the resilience of William Woods and I think the fact that because David Kierens kept hounding William Woods too, it made it worse, and it fed the persistence that William Woods had. It's absolutely unbelievable. So what ultimately happened to all of the conviction, because even though he pled no contest to those felonies, he was still convicted.
Right.
So
right.
he was a convicted felon after all of this.
So this is real recent, April of 2024, just a couple months ago.
It's like a month and it's like 6 weeks ago.
Yeah. I think it was literally like 6 weeks ago. A Los Angeles County Superior Court vacated his conviction back in April of this year. It was Judge Ryan. He acknowledged the whole thing, right? This bizarre and tragic nature of this case. And so William was finally exonerated, but the years of lost freedom, loss of dignity, the mental anguish, I mean, that can't be undone.
No.
So he returns to a world that moved on without him, kind of grappling with the scars of this and the mental anguish of this whole ordeal. And after his conviction was vacated just a couple weeks ago, William Woods, he began, trying to rebuild his life over this period, even before it was vacated. But the Los Angeles County completely dismissed it. They noticed and went on record that Matthew David Kierens had stole his identity for over 30 years. And he pleaded guilty to federal charges of identity theft, making false statements. So this legal victory finally has allowed Woods to, start to move on with his life now that it's finally over. And as of the research,
where's William Woods today?
I think, as of a couple weeks ago, he's in El Paso.
Okay.
There was no reported current employer, but I was able to ascertain, he's in El Paso. There's no public record of him securing a job since his exoneration in April, but we do know he is in El Paso and wish him the best. However, he's taken steps towards seeking justice. He's trying to seek compensation for the hardship he endured. My hats off to him on that.
I mean, this is a phenomenal lawsuit, because this is not like some whiplash case where you're trying to get $1 million. This isn't an ambulance chase. This is a legit suit. You have a fundamental human right to your identity.
Well, yeah, he's not only has intentions of filing the lawsuit against Kierens, but he's the other parties involved with his wrongful arrest, his incarceration, his forced medication. Man, that's not a good look. So he's planning to go after everybody on this one. And his public statements very recently here indicate the desire to hold those people. He wants them held accountable for the impact that they had on his life.
Good. Well, the system failed him. The court system failed him. The medical system failed him. I mean, when he was forced to the hospital and given psychotropic drugs, you would think they would have done a DNA test or something, because the whole time he's sitting there saying, this isn't me. This isn't me. This isn't me. Why would somebody not have taken a step to prove medically, like the detective did over in Iowa, right? Why would the California healthcare system, which was court ordered upon him, not even have done that? It raises so many questions.
Yeah, even after all this trauma, based on some of the statements he's made, it sounds like he finds a sense of vindication, now that his name's been cleared. And I think there's some poetic justice that he finds in the fact that it drew such significant media attention, right? To highlight these flaws in the justice system and the impact that identity theft can have on people.
Absolutely.
And it serves as a powerful reminder. We tell clients and groups we speak in front of all the time the importance of being vigilant with your personal data and the need to protect people from these crimes.
Yeah. And this doesn't, you don't have to have high income and things like that to do some of the best practices. When we think about what people should do. Now, in this instance, this story, it was physically taken, but it's the same thing. The conversion, theft is the same thing. By not having good cyber hygiene, this exact same thing can happen to every one of us. And that's the moral here. When we think about what we could have done or what should people do, We've gathered up a couple best practices. One is obviously secure personal documents, right? That's the lesson from this story. Shred sensitive documents. Use a cross-cut shredder to destroy documents containing personal information like bank statements, medical records, credit card offers. Store them securely. Keep important documents like birth certificates, social security cards, passports, tax records in a secure location, such as a locked drawer or safe. And we always talk about this, right, Mark? You've got to monitor financial activity. You've got to freeze your credit. You've got to freeze your children's credit. It's free to do.
Even if your credit score is a 7 like mine, you still got to monitor it. You know?
Mark freezes his credit, even though nobody wants his credit. Like, it is really important. You know, I'm kidding. But look, it's really important. Like, everybody should freeze the credit. We have all the links for you to do it. There's 3 bureaus that you contact. The forms are linked in our take-home resources right on our website. It's right by our media kit, and it's right by the public service initiative that we run at cybercrimejunkies.com. Go check those out. We'll show you ways to monitor all of your financial activity. Regularly check your credit reports. Review your credit reports at least annually, once a year. It's free to do. You get 1 free credit pull a year, and it's not going to hurt your credit. So it won't bring you from a 7 to a 6, Mark. That way it ensures, look, there's no unauthorized charges on there, right? Because had he been doing this, he might have been able to find it earlier in the 90s. Set up the alerts. They enable account alerts on your bank, on your credit card accounts to receive notifications of suspicious activity. Obviously, we've talked about this for decades, man. Use strong passwords and multi-factor authentication. Create strong passwords, right? And create more than one. Like, years ago, when you and I used to talk about this, we would be like, everybody's got to get a better password. And then we would go back and do those same sessions to some of the same people. And they'd be like, buddy, I took your advice. I got me a really strong password. I use it for every
website I go to.
Yeah.
Everything I log into, I use that
what
same
we're
password.
saying. Yeah. Not the message. like our message hadn't resonated. You can never, more importantly than anything else, don't reuse passwords. Use a password manager, use an algorithm. It's all in the take-home resources. Just go to the site, download it. There's no cost to any of this stuff. It's right there. We've literally put it all together for everybody.
All of this that we're reviewing is right there for you to use.
Absolutely.
And the links to do it.
Yep. Enable multi-factor authentication. You can do that on social media. You can do that on your Gmail accounts. Always verify, because then there's no way for somebody to, unless they use other methods, right? But it will drastically reduce the risk that you have. Be cautious with personal information. You know, we talk about this a lot. We believe people need to grow brands and use social media. We think it's good for people individually to build a personal brand, as well as for the organizations that you serve to support those brands. But avoid sharing too much personal information on social media platforms. Information like your birthday, your address, your real phone number. You can get a free Google phone number. Like, put that out there. And it can be used by identity thieves. When you take pictures, right? Don't take them of the front of your home with the address right there. I still see that all over social media. I'm like, what are you doing? Like, do you not think there are bad people in the world? Like, is it just naivete? Like, don't do that. It will harm you. Be wary of phishing, learn how to spot a fish. We have all that information in the take-home guides.
Yes.
Secure all your digital devices, update your software, patch that software. That is so important. When you get it, they're like, oh, I've got an update. I'll do it next week. No, do it now.
It's probably a security update.
Yeah, do it now. Use VPNs, things like that. Manage physical mail. One of the best practices we came across here is to use like a locked mailbox or to manage physical mail. You know, a lot of post offices have a free thing in place where you can get an email ahead of time with the pictures of the mail that's coming the next day. Our post office does that. So we see we're getting this bill, we're getting this thing and this other thing and this letter from somebody, blah, blah, blah. And now we know a couple days, if that's not in our mailbox, it's missing, right? Yep. That is free. Just like get online, check that out. And one of the key things is take immediate action if identity is compromised, right? I mean, place fraud alerts on your accounts, especially if you have credit cards, any major credit bureaus, place fraud alerts on your credit report, which makes it harder for thieves to open accounts in your name. Freeze your credit. And if it does happen, and this is all also in the take-home resources, file a report. You can file an identity theft report right with the FTC. They will take it seriously. There's links to it right there at cybercrimejunkies.com in the take-home resources. You also can file with your local police department.
Yeah. And it's, by implementing these strategies and leveraging some of these tools and the take-home resources on the website, what it does is it significantly reduces your risk of identity or data theft. It protects your personal information from ever being misused. So please take advantage of that. And again, there is no cost. It's just on the website for you to use.
Yeah. So, I mean, this discussion, this true crime, like it talked about kind of what can a thief do after stealing your identity today, right? I mean, it talks about how to protect your identity and your reputation online. We walk through that tragic story of William Woods and how he lost his identity and what happens and what can happen to you if you lose your identity. So we hope this was helpful to everybody. So thanks for listening, and we will see you on the next one. Yep. Say goodbye, Mark.
Goodbye, Mark.
See ya. Well, that wraps this up. Thank you for joining us. We hope you enjoyed our episode. The next one is coming right up. We appreciate you making this an award-winning podcast and downloading on Apple and Spotify and subscribing to our YouTube channel. This is Cybercrime Junkies, and we thank you for watching.